Step into Behind the Highlighter, where books come alive beyond the pages. This isn't your typical book review. It's raw, spontaneous, and unscripted conversations with the authors themselves. Together, we'll uncover the bold ideas and hidden gems that my highlighter couldn't resist marking. The sparks of wisdom that demand a closer look. Get ready to dive deeper into the minds behind the words. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Behind the Highlighter. Lucas Hahn here. I've got a great one for everybody today. We're going to be talking about the book, The Family Business Balancing Act, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Being a Family Man by Patrick Cummings. So I've got Pat on here. I've been talking to Pat a little bit about his book and about life in general, and just really excited about this one. I don't remember exactly when I got my hands on it, but I feel like I ripped through this one in about a week or a week and a half. It seemed like a pretty quick turn. A lot of it was that the book is just so relatable. There's so many great things in here. And the book for me is scratching that itch of what's the value you're bringing as a husband? What's the value you're bringing at home? But also recognizing that this world requires us to have a bit of a business mind. You got to have money in the bank to do a lot of things. And this does a really great job of helping with the balancing act. So I'm going to, turn now. I'll just let Pat maybe give a little bit of background about yourself for the listeners so they know, who they're talking to, and then we'll really get into the book.
Sure. Well, thank you. I love the fact that I'm here, Lucas, and I appreciate you asking me. I wrote the book several years ago, right after COVID. I'd lost my dad in 2019, and he and I didn't have a very good relationship. So a bit about me is I grew up raised by a single mom. My brother lived with my dad. I saw him maybe every other week, every third week, and he was a workaholic. So that's all I knew that men did. And when I saw my dad, oftentimes I'd end up having to go to work with him. And so being raised in that environment, and I go off and get in college and get in a relationship and get married and, get a job, I think my entire being is all about generating income for my family. Like I'm a provider, and that's what had to come first. And some of the corporate jobs I had, that's what it was. Like your job had to come first. And, thinking back through all that stuff when my dad eventually passed in 2019, obviously I'd started thinking about a lot of that stuff way before that when I had my family. But that really led to the book, The Family Business Balancing Act. And it's not about balance 50-50. There is none, right? If somebody says, well, I give 50% of my time here, 50% of my time to work, that doesn't work. But it's how do you prioritize and how do you build a good team around you so that you can spend the time with your family.
Right. Well, thanks for that, Pat. Maybe if you want to just share a little bit about, so obviously you're an author. Obviously you're a dad and a husband.
Yeah.
But what's the other part? What's the entrepreneur part? Like where's Pat an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So back when I graduated from college, I went and worked corporate America, and that's what everybody did. And I had a great job. I, worked for a corporation out of Switzerland, and, expense account, new vehicle every 18 months, et cetera, et cetera. And it got to the point where I was a corporate pawn and I didn't like it. My son was 4 years old, and I realized that for one entire year of those 4 years I'd spent looking through the windshield of a company vehicle. And I called my broker, who was my stockbroker at the time, and I said, what's it like being a stockbroker? And this is like 1999. And oh man, it's amazing. It's, you can make all this money. Well, this was the run up prior to the .com bust. And so the end of 1999, my daughter had been born. She was healthy. And I called the company and asked them really where they wanted to have the company truck dropped off. And I decided to get into the investment business. Now, going backwards a little bit, I have a degree in economics and plant science. And I jokingly tell people that I wanted to learn how to grow money, plant science and economics. But, I'm a relational guy, and I wanted to have a business where I could begin building a business and having relationships with people versus just transactional. And so the company that I went to work for, You have no business. Like there's no clients, nothing. And you go out and knock on doors. And so people referred to me as kind of the walking stockbroker, but I took a much different approach to it. And, first starting out, I remember driving around blocks trying to figure out, well, where should I park my car? I don't know if I should park here or park there. And aside from the fact that I was physically ill before I left my house that morning, but what I found is that a lot of the people that were doing the same thing, they were trying to sell something door to door. And I just started knocking on people's doors, and people would yell through the door, "What do you want?" And I'd hold up my hands, and I had a notepad with me, and I'd say, "I'm not here to sell you anything or convert your religion." And people would laugh and open the door. And I just began conversations about, what I was trying to do. I was trying to start a business, and I really, truly wanted to help people save and get to the point where they wanted to be financially to retire. And lo and behold, I did that day after day after day, sun, rain, snow, and 3 years built a pretty significant base of clientele doing that. And other people were buying lists, they were doing all this other stuff trying to gain clients. And I just decided to get out, talk to people face to face, belly to belly about what they were trying to accomplish. And it was successful.
Yeah. Yeah. So still doing that, right? You've grown that business and you're still in the financial planning world. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started out, no assistant, no office. I literally had my office in my garage. I put up a wall. I duct taped a phone line to the floor. Yes, this was back before cell phones were really, common, but it was crazy that people would write me checks to open investment accounts. Hey, where's your office? Oh, I'm working out of my garage. You're just some guy. But, now I have a team of 10 people and 2 business partners that are amazing that eventually are going to go on to take on the business. But it's been a lot of fun. And building a team of people that allows me to go out and help people, do the things that I want to do. So.
Yeah, helping people, and as the book gets into, serving your family well. And we'll get into that. So I want to talk about something that's on the dust jacket, actually, and it's an Albert Einstein quote where you talk about. It says right here, "Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value." Mm-hmm. And before we went live here, you and I actually talked a little bit about that word success and business success. So a lot of people, and I see this all the time, that word value, everybody goes dollars, right? Everybody goes money. Right. It's easy to say, okay, what does value mean? Oh, it means dollars. It means money. But your book, I think, tells me that you don't see value equals dollars necessarily. Value equals a lot of other things. Right. So what, when you think about, writing the book, and you talked about, with your dad and that relationship and what you thought it meant to be a dad and a husband is to bring that money. That's your value. Right. I feel like your book's telling me that you learned other things that are of value. So what were some of those big things that jumped to you? Like, what's value mean to Pat now?
So, my kids now, 26 and 29, and they're my best friends, right. And I was out walking with a gentleman this morning, and he doesn't have any relationship with his kids. And I think that's really sad, but what is value? So the first company that I went to work for as a broker, and they'd call me at 6 a.m. Are you in the office yet? And how come you're not in the office? And then they would judge me by how much revenue I generated every day. And I think going back to what you're talking about, I mean, the very first days of this was, I told the guy that I'm going to make my kids breakfast every morning and take them to school. And if they didn't like it, fire me. And I think the value that I got from that relationship with my kids early, and fortunately having my own business, I had the opportunity to do that, right? My wife's a veterinarian. She didn't have that opportunity. Hey, surgery's at 7:30. You got to be at the clinic at whatever time. And, so for me, just the value of building that relationship. And then when I did drive my kids to school, I didn't get on the phone and have them watching a video. I was talking to them about just different things. And so I think part of that is value. teaching my team that they don't, their whole value is not just what they're doing at work, and helping people. We now, we adopt multiple families every year. We don't tell the families who we are. We help them with Christmas and Thanksgiving, and we're not getting a paycheck from that. We're not doing it as an advertisement. We're doing that to help people. And so I created a team that, they're looking and listening. If somebody has a need, whether, a friend of mine, he just recently passed away, I offered my team to this family to help them settle everything. And we're not billing them. We can't bill them because we're just doing it because we know how to do it financially. They don't know what, they don't know much about it. But I guess, again, going back to my kids, I wanted to be the dad where other kids loved coming to our house.
Yeah.
Like, I would barbecue hot dogs, or I'd start a fire out on the property, and kids would roast hot dogs, or, make s'mores. They'd have parties in our basement where they were watching movies. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to be the dad that, hey, I got a problem. Do you think your dad would talk to me about it? Or they just knew it was a safe place.
Yeah.
And what happened over the years is people would call us their second parents. And,
Right.
So I guess for me, it was building that life for my kids that I didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't about the money part, right? It was about being there through the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, if you have kids, you got the good, bad, and the ugly when they hit teenage years. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
But developing that really, really strong relationship with them early on, so that when you did get to those rough years, you're going to make it through it.
Right.
That's a value with my kids. And then the value with friends and community. I just want to make sure that, people that I interact with, they don't see me as the sales guy.
Right.
I'm there to have a conversation with them, or I'm there for relationship, and, helping mentor people without a financial incentive to do that. I mentor a lot of young people in our business that, oh my goodness, they want to go from the bottom of the ladder to the top of the ladder and never catch a step. And teaching them that's, life isn't about being at the top. It's about the journey. And maybe that journey is going to take you somewhere else before you get to the top of the ladder.
Yeah. Well, it's good you said somewhere else, because that's what I'm in the introduction piece still, but I want to talk about a couple things here. And one thing I want to say is, when I'm out there reading books, I always love to learn something new, and I've definitely learned some new things from your book. But also one thing that I really like, and I think most people crave this naturally as humans, like if you're doing something different and you feel good about it, well, to read a book that says that's how you should be doing it, like that affirmation piece, right? And this in your book to me did that for me a lot. Like there's a number of things in here, and I think you and I just got to talk briefly a little bit before, but there's a number of things in here that I'm already doing, and I haven't been doing them my whole life. It's things that I've recently learned.
Awesome.
Like if I want to be a better father and a dad, this is it. So there's a number of pieces of your book that were affirmation for me, and I really appreciate that, and
Awesome.
some new
Thank
stuff.
you. Yeah, thank you.
But going along that affirmation piece, you in your introduction described kind of that disciplinary father as the grumpy taskmaster. And when I saw that, I went, man, that was a good description of me maybe 8 or 9 years ago before I really started working on some of this stuff. And it's definitely going to be a false description of me after reading the book, because I've got some, sharpen the saw. But so let me just ask, like, that, were you ever the grumpy taskmaster, and how far in did you get before you went, I'm not going to be that guy?
Yeah, I was. I mean, my son, you asking me this question, this is not rehearsed. It's, I remember a time when he wanted to help mow the lawn, and he didn't do it the way that I thought he should do it. And he, some skips in the yard or whatever. And I was pretty hard on him. And it didn't take me long to realize that because I was hard on him, did he ever want to come back to me and say, "Hey, Dad, I want to learn how to do that"? Heck no. Right. And so I kind of changed that up a little bit. I mean, that's just one example that jumped into my head, but I changed it up a little bit. And I started telling him that, look, if you do this and you go out and do this as a job, or you do this for other people, they have an expectation. And disappointment comes from unmet expectations, right? And so if you're going to go mow the lawn and you're going to get done and there's skips or there's different patches or whatever, you're going to have to go back and redo the whole thing. But I remember, yeah, my dad, oh my gosh, he was a taskmaster, right? I mean,
Right.
you're going to do it right or you're not going to do it at all. And it didn't work to say, well, then I'm not going to do it at all. Right. That wasn't an
Right.
option. It
Wasn't an option. Yeah.
no. And so I found myself being that way. I found myself later on in the book, I found myself not handling stresses very well. And so sometimes I take that out on my kids when they were trying to learn something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I even took it to the point of taskmaster. Hey, we're going to go hunting, and by God, we're going to really focus on, we're not going to be noisy. We're not going to, and it was boring to them.
Yeah. You're going to have an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so trying to tame that down a bit, and going back to when I was a child, it was, when I grew up with a single mom, we didn't have anything. And so yeah, I was pretty tough on my kids early on. And I don't know how I realized it or what made me think of it, but this is not working. This is not the way to motivate them to want to come forward and, hey, I'll help you rake leaves or whatever the project was.
Yeah. No, good. I think, and you talk a lot in the introduction about kind of that, we don't know how to, we see what, we replicate what we grew up with. And so maybe that means we're not sure how to communicate these things. And we are a grumpy taskmaster, and we just kind of replicate that environment we were in. And you kind of, you got a book here saying that we're going to break this pattern. So you switch from grumpy taskmaster to being part of their life and developing that relationship at some point.
Yeah.
One thing you say at the very end of the introduction that really jumped off, I was like, wow, that's a great way to say it. I mean, somebody, the book is targeted for entrepreneurs, but what I'll say is, I'm new to the entrepreneur world, and I spent a lot of time in the corporate world, 25 years in corporate America.
Yeah.
But this book would have served me well in corporate America. It's going to serve me well as an entrepreneur, but the fundamentals are the same, whether you're coming home from a job where somebody's your boss or not. This book is going to help. Like, I'll just say it right there. I look back to those first 25 years of my career and say everything in this book applied. I mean, there's some things that are very entrepreneurial, specific, like you have a little more control of your schedule, all that stuff. But honestly, if you're doing the right things in corporate America, you do too. So I don't think this book, to me, I know you targeted it for entrepreneurs, but anybody in corporate America leadership role or entrepreneurs, I think fundamentals are the same. So I'm going to get that out there. But I think, if you are an entrepreneur and you're out there actively reading a book that helps you find the balance, you make a statement here. It says, good thing you're a hard worker. Like, you put that in there, like you're making that assumption. If you're picking up this book and you're an entrepreneur, you're a hard worker. And I think that's a fairly safe assumption on your part. But then you definitely dive right in about how hard this is going to be. Like, this is not supposed to be easy. And then right here in the first part, so you have it separated into 3 parts, but I'm in part 1 about developing new tradition. And you say here, perhaps the hardest part of being a good dad is that most of us struggle to find the resources to be the fathers we intend to be. That starts with a lack of really good examples. So my question for you here, and you do a little bit of this in the book, in the next, in the following paragraphs, but where were you able to go to find some of those examples? What were some of the places that you either intentionally looked or you unintentionally stumbled over these good examples? What are some resource or some places people could look?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was kind of unintentional. I'm reading your book right now, and I think a lot of it was unintentional, but looking at things that I didn't want to be. and
Yeah.
trying to do it different.
Okay.
Right. I saw parents that didn't show up to their kids' programs or didn't show up to their kids' games, or if they did, they certainly didn't pay attention and have a vested interest. And I had a friend growing up. His dad was a severe alcoholic, and he was very good athlete and was competing at an event, and his dad showed up drunk and was rooting for the wrong kid. And it was absolutely heartbreaking, right?
Yeah.
And I was pretty young when I saw this. And I never wanted to be that guy. And there were a few people, and I can't think of them right off the top of my head right now, that had just amazing relationships with their kids. And I was envious of that. Right. I didn't have that relationship with my dad. I didn't have that relationship with my brother. And so I really tried to strive to do that. My men's group at work, or not at work, my men's group at church, excuse me. There were multiple people in that group that were quite a bit older than me. And they talked about the things they wish they would have done. And so I took a lot of that to heart, that if you wished you would have done it different, how would you have done it? And so I tried to implement some things that way.
Yeah.
Growing up, I didn't ever read books. I didn't find out until my son was in ninth grade. Yeah, I didn't find out until my son was in ninth grade what auditory processing disorder was, because he was diagnosed with auditory processing disorder. I talk about that in the book, but I have auditory processing disorder. And for me to read a book, I can't stay focused. Like there's something in behind me that does that. And so, listening to podcasts, the Daily Dad, there's a podcast out there about the guy that puts stuff out. I think it's called The Daily Dad. Listening to him and just kind of doing research on, what does it mean to be an active father? And growing up in my generation, so I'm 59 years old. My dad just passed; he was 82. I think growing up in that time frame, our parents had to work to survive, and they didn't have some of the freedoms that we have as business owners. Again, so just looking at people that I didn't want to mirror, doing the opposite. My men's group at church was really, I think my men's group at church was really monumental for me. Again, because some of them were entrepreneurs, some of them weren't, but listening to what they wish they'd have done different.
Right. Good. Yeah. So some good resources for people to get to kind of see what you said. You mentioned that you looked at my book there a little bit. I don't know if you get to the part where I talk about what good looks like, right? Mm-hmm. Like you want to see what good looks like and try and replicate it, but also understand what does good not do. They don't do this behavior. They don't do that. So,
well, and what does bad look like? And let's not replicate that.
Yeah. Let's not do that. Yeah. Let's avoid that thing. Great.
And I remember, so The Cat's in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon, the song.
Yeah.
That song is heartbreaking to me still today with my dad. When you coming home, Dad, I don't know when. We'll get together then. And then pretty soon my life got busy. He retired. We didn't have a relationship.
Yeah.
So
missed it.
I just didn't want that
next time around.
Yeah.
So I'm going up now into next chapter. I'm still in this first section, but you have a chapter on taking yourself off default, and I highlighted a couple things here, but I want to zone in on one thing. And just so you know, I'm not stopping at everything I highlighted, or we'd have a 4-hour podcast. So I've got a couple things tagged, because I want to make sure that we give a little bit of each piece of the book, because I think it's important to see the full picture here, because you do paint a very full picture here on some of this. But this one part on defaults jumps out to me. And I think this happens to just about everybody. You get really busy, so you kind of just go to your default settings. And so when you were, maybe either, something you've learned maybe since you wrote the book or while you were writing the book, like, did you put any thought into like, where are people's default settings coming from? Like, is it coming from the overarching culture? Is it coming from, your childhood? Is it coming, where do you think some of those default settings are coming from to maybe help people recognize that, the goal is here, you don't want to be on your default settings if they're not helping you, right?
Yeah, I think it comes somewhat from modeling what we learned, right? So you're just on default from that, but also society.
Society, yeah.
Society says you gotta success. You and I talked about that earlier, but success is money, success is power, success is prestige, and that's not truly all that success is. And so I think the societal pressures are probably higher than even your upbringing. My parents weren't entrepreneurs; they were both teachers. They got a paycheck. They didn't understand it when I didn't have vacation in the summertime when I started working. So I think that's part of it. But I think society is just puts those pressures on us, and then we put them on ourselves to compare ourselves against the Joneses.
Right. And if we're not paying attention, it just becomes a default, right?
It just becomes a habit. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I want to go further here, and it's not really anything that I can read, but in your default setting piece, you give a tool that you used. I'm going to say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you tricked your brain into doing something you didn't like. And so what it is your notebook that you had to keep, which I think was your tallies on how many doors you were knocking on or something like that.
Yep.
But you recognized that you didn't like doing that thing, but why you did it was to support your family. And so you more or less tricked your brain by putting a photograph of that on that sheet of paper.
Yeah, that's actually in the book. The picture is in my book.
It is. And I do this all the time. Visual management to me is incredible. And you give a couple other examples in the book about this. I think it's one later where you talk about something you write before you enter the house to de-stress you about praying. But this visual picture, you're out doing this task you don't want to do. That picture reminds you why you want to do it. So do you still use, my question here, and you did that when you're knocking on doors, do you still have a piece of visual management like that's been powerful that you want to share with people?
Yeah. And so basically what that did was, there are metrics out there on how many people you have to talk to on a day-to-day basis to become, successful as a stockbroker in the business that I was working at the time. And that metric was you had to ask somebody to buy or sell something 25 times a day. You had to ask for business 25 times a day. And to me, that nugget of, oh my gosh, this is insurmountable. There's 25. And so I broke it down into 5 different groups. And okay, if I can do this 5 times for my family, and so I had a picture of my family, the first picture. And then I'd flip the page. The second picture was for my daughter. The third picture was for my son. The fourth picture was for my wife. And then the 5th picture was something that I wanted, but I couldn't do until I'd done the others. And so, as an example, I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but I wanted to go caribou hunting with a friend of mine who lives up in the Arctic. He's a native Eskimo. But I wasn't going to do that until I did all those other things first.
Yeah.
And then once I succeeded in that picture changed to a jet boat so I could go jet boating in Hell's Canyon. I succeeded that. Then it was an airplane. I was able to buy an airplane. But so yes, the pictures today are my 29-year-old son and my 26-year-old daughter. And my son said, Dad, I want to be able to see you every other month. And he lives in Indianapolis. We now live in northern Tucson. And okay, what do I need to do for him that's going to allow me to do that?
Yeah.
Right. And so, yes, I still do it today. Not as much.
Yeah.
But I still fall back on that. And I have pictures of my family in my office.
Yeah. So powerful tool. Just get that picture of that thing you want and see it all the time.
And I think a key here, and I just thought of it, is So mine was in a spiral notebook, just a little notebook, and it says goals on the front, and it's got a bunch of pages in it. But you could never shut the book, because if you
Okay.
shut the book, you couldn't see your family. You couldn't
Right.
see the picture, and it was easy then to avoid it, right?
Yeah.
And so that page was always sitting there right next to my computer, and I would flip all 5 and I would date it, and then I would go back to the beginning for the next day.
Yeah.
And me looking at that picture saying, if I can't do this 5 times for you today, what am I doing?
What am I doing?
Simon Sinek, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Simon Sinek in there, and yeah, if anybody's listening to this and they haven't, understanding your why or finding your why, there's all kinds of great stuff out there.
Yeah.
But I want to stay on why, and this is the last thing I want to do in this chapter on default. Because you talk about getting down your big whys, because that's going to help you determine your success in life. And so this is really kind of a philosophical thing that and I'm a big proponent of the whys. I have my whys in front of me. It's on the thing I see all the time. But I've had this recent epiphany. Like I did a lot of work to put down my whys. I really did. I really was very intentional about it. And I was proud of myself. And then I went, I think they're changing a little bit. And so just philosophically, you talk about your big whys. Have yours evolved and changed? And how do you feel about that?
Yeah. Well, they certainly have changed, because early on when I had my son was born and then my daughter was born, the why back then was, providing. Man, I had to do this to provide to them. And that was a really hard driver why. And I would look at that book and go knock on doors, and there were so many doors I knocked on every single day. I threw up and had diarrhea every day. It was the best weight loss plan you ever wanted. But my whys have changed significantly now. And a lot of what I do is so that I can be a part of my kids' life. And for me, it's a lot about kids, but it's some of the other whys are some of my real close friends. And it's at the end of the day, and I don't know who said this, but you never see a trailer hitch on a hearse.
Yeah.
And so I guess, when is enough enough? And then when you got enough, why are you doing then what you're doing moving forward? And so my why has changed a lot to try and help people who are younger, who have children, not go through a divorce, not lose a child, due to them taking their own life. Or if I can do that for somebody, there is no financial gain, right?
Right.
So yes, my whys have changed. The business, I love the fact that my 2 business partners want to grow like crazy. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I want to take care of the team. I want to make sure that our team is happy, that they're fulfilled in what they do, that we're not looking to replace people. And sometimes I've probably, helped people and hurt myself.
Yeah. Temporary hurt.
Temporary.
You're seeing the big picture. Yeah.
Yeah. But absolutely, your why is going to change, because, you get to the top of the ladder and you look around and say, wow, this view's not what I thought.
Yeah.
Now what am I going to do?
Now what am I going to do?
But you have to have a why, even when you retire.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree with you there, like that. Okay, so I'm moving in a section now on your and the title here just struck me, because this is something I firmly believe in. I've done this for years, and it's really changed things. I mean, in my space, I teach a lot about voice of the customer, understanding what your customer needs and serving your customer. And I've always treated my children as a customer of my parenting. And you talk about that in here. So family is your most important customer. I don't really want have, unless you want to, but you put it here, like, if you're willing to take a bullet for your family, and most fathers are, like, I'll absolutely go down to save my family, sure. But you say, if you're willing to take a bullet for them, why wouldn't you leave work 30 minutes early for them? that was just an eye opener to me. Like, okay, if I'm willing to do all this stuff, then why wouldn't I do this? And I just kind of wanted to share that. But where I really wanted to go is deeper into this whole idea of your family being your most important client. And you talk in your book about, your business, and you mentioned it earlier when we were talking here that you weren't out there as a salesman. You were out there trying to serve them. You were trying to have a conversation to understand what they need.
Yeah.
So my question here about this chapter, and there's a lot of really good little nuggets in there, like the bullet one, but are you sitting down with that customer, your family, and saying, what do you need from me? And how are you doing that? And when are you doing that?
Yeah. Well, now it's really hard because my kids are gone. Right.
Yeah.
But we still have that conversation. And I haven't been doing it as much lately. We recently relocated, but FaceTiming my kids. And so you're actually looking at them. So you see what they're doing and they see what you're doing. But before that, I think Lucas, this device here
Yeah.
is, and I have my kids on there, by the way.
There you go.
But I think this device here is ruining more relationships than helping. And why I say that is we are hardwired 24/7. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out and you're on your own, and the phone rings and, oh my gosh, it might be a potential deal. I need more business. You have to set a precedence that when I'm with my family, when I'm sitting at dinner, when you take off Friday afternoon, you're not back on till Tuesday, that interruption is not occurring when you're at the dinner table. I mean, how many times you go to a restaurant now and 4 or 5 different family members are sitting there and every single one of them's on their phone. They're not even having a conversation. And so I think taking a step back, because you'd never do that with a client.
Yeah.
Right. If you're sitting with Mr. or Mrs. Big client or big prospect and your phone's ringing, you're not going to look to see who's calling you on your watch, and you're not going to pick up the phone and talk to them.
No. Right.
So why do we do it? Why do we do it to our family?
Yeah.
And not only that, I'll take it a step further, is with your team. Are you treating your team as well as you're treating your best client? Because I've seen over and over and over again, people are meeting with a person on their team and their phone rings and they'll say, oh, just a minute, let me take that phone call. And that just told the person that you're meeting, that you're sitting face to face with, they're less important.
Right.
So it's critical that, you don't think of them. I had somebody criticize me for saying, think of them as your best client. They're not a client, they're your family. But I was trying to make a point that what would you not do if you're talking to your best client?
Yeah.
The other part that drives me crazy is when people go in the bathroom and they're using the urinal and they're talking on the phone. It just makes me lose my mind.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of problems with that.
But I think if you're driving in the car, a lot of people are spending a lot of time commuting.
Yeah.
And the first thing they do is they plug in the audio or the video player in the back seat and they jump on their phone and they're doing business. And you're teaching your kids that that's the most important thing as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's some great tips there. And you're kind of jumping into, you kind of segued right into where I was headed, because the next chapter is around learning to step away. And you said some things in there that actually connect to something I've highlighted here, that ability to step away and to be able to provide that focus to that customer, which, I mentioned, like, I see my kids as a customer of my parenting. Yeah. I have got some looks like, what is wrong with, but you know what, if there's something like that, like voice of the customer, understanding customer needs, that makes you successful in business, right? Corporate America, making millions of dollars. If it works there, why wouldn't you try it where it's more important, at home? Right. And so I understand there's lines there and you don't want to mix the two. And you give a great tip about what you do before you go in the house and not bring the work stress in. But you know what, if I find something that works in the professional world, why wouldn't I want to apply it at home where it might matter more? So I've kind of learned to get over that. I think my kids were a little abrasive to it at first, probably my wife more so. But now that they recognize by me treating them that way, everything's better for them because I'm really trying to understand intentionally what their needs are. They love it. Like it's great. They would never have it another way.
Yeah.
You get into talking about stepping away, and you kind of started to get into this. And what I wanted to, I highlighted a section here about in order for you to be successful in that as an entrepreneur, one of the things you have to do is the culture of the business you're leading has to change. It can't be the default average, American business culture where it's work,
Yeah.
work, work. And so you kind of started talking about this. So I don't know if maybe you want to just reiterate it or take a fresh take on it. But my question here was going to be, what were some of the biggest cultural changes that you had to make in the business, and what were some of the steps you took to make them?
Yeah, well, the hard part is stepping away. It really is hard stepping away because, what are they going to say if I leave the office at 3:30? Who's going to say that I'm not working hard enough, or my priorities aren't right? And so, I mean, that's part of it. Okay, you have to recognize that. But once you begin doing that, and your team understanding that maybe you are stepping away, but you're going to go do business somewhere else, or you just need a break. That's part of it, but not micromanaging. I think one of the things that has helped me be able to step away or to be able to change the priorities is you have to have confidence in your team. You cannot micromanage people and be able to step away. You can't, because they're always going to then be asking you, well, how should I do this? And so you have to enable them to learn to take on responsibility, to also know that if they make a mistake, it's okay. Now, they can't make that same mistake over and over and over again, but it's okay to make a mistake. You're not going to get yelled at. You're not going to get fired. I'm not going to put you up in front of the rest of the team and criticize you. It's how we all learn. And from an early stage, early on, I have set that expectation with my team, and it has allowed me to do some things that I would never have been able to do. My wife and I went and spent 10 days in Hawaii, and I didn't work. I made the mistake of one day answering my phone, and I shouldn't have done that. And then 2 years ago, we went to South Africa for 20 days, and I did not come back to a single fire in the office. And I truly believe it's because I set my team up for success in that, number one, they knew it was okay to make a decision. And number two, I gave them the resources of, if you can't figure it out, what would Pat do? And go do it, right?
Yeah.
They could figure it out. And so I might have gotten off track on your question here, but
well, no, but because I think one of the biggest cultural changes that I try and get leaders to understand is, and it's one word, it's empowerment. And there's a lot that goes into that word. You have to be able to trust people. You have to be able to depend on people. You have to be able to let them know what good looks like. There's a lot of things that go into it, but if you have a fully empowered workforce, you can achieve an awful lot of stuff. But the cultural expectation in most American companies isn't that everybody's empowered. It's that everybody's busy. Everybody's doing what they're told. And that's not true empowerment. So I don't think you're necessarily off track from what I was getting towards. What's that big cultural lift that you got to have? And you kind of said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but everything you were saying to me is empowerment.
Well, yeah. And the other part of that is, if somebody has got, if their projects are all done, right? They're done for the day and it's 3:45. Why should they have to sit at their desk until 5:00 when we don't punch time cards? We're not paid by the hour. Why should they have to sit there until 5:00 just acting busy? I don't do that. Right. And then when there are times when, hey guys, we gotta buckle down. We're gonna be here till 6:00. I'm ordering pizzas because we got to get all this stuff done. They're more willing to do that, because at other times you're willing to say, hey, all your stuff's done. Good job. Go take off for the afternoon. Here, go get an ice cream cone or go pick your kid up early from school or whatever. But if you do that, I think the buy-in from your team becomes so much greater.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to talk about that. I'm going to come back to that at the very end here. We're actually, believe it or not, like pretty far in here. Only got a couple of minutes. But there's a couple things I want to talk about, and you have it in your conclusion where you talk kind of like that about that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to that thought
Okay.
about activity there. But in your keeping stress separate, we already kind of touched on this one, but this is where it sits in the book. And I love this because I think it shows a lot about what you value. And I think it shows another thing we talked about earlier, that visual tool. But you said, I hung a sticker from the garage door opener in my car that said, pray before entering. And that was in order for you to kind of not enter the house with all this stress. You're not bringing the negative, stuff from work. And I love that it's visual. It's something you saw every day. You really couldn't avoid it. It was right there. I got to get in the garage door. But now I know you've kind of moved on in seasons here. Kids are out of the house, all that stuff. Do you still have anything like that in place, or is that particular tool still in place, or have you realized that it served you well and you're on?
I realized it served me well, and I don't have it there.
Yeah.
I probably should. But I was walking in the book, I talk a lot about it. I was walking into constant conflict in my house, and I felt like I was the guy in the middle of the ring, and my kids wanted me to take sides, and I probably did take sides. And it was the reminder I needed to say, hey, you got to take a step back here, because I lost my cool. And I wrote about that in the book, and I was really disappointed with myself about it. I probably need to redo that, but I don't feel like I walk into conflict now when I'm coming home, which is good.
Right. Well, and I tell this to people all the time, and I do this myself. Some of those little tools serve you in the moment, but then you don't need them anymore. But I'm always saying, don't be afraid to turn it back on.
Yeah.
Like the day you feel like you need it again, it's there, and you go get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I went kind of love and respect. I'm into love and respect. So we're getting really close to the end of our time, plus the end of the book here. So I did fan over a couple things here to get where we are. But you talk in this love and respect chapter about just you keep trying. Like you show them love and respect by understanding that you keep trying. That it's a commitment from you, and then that's how you're going to get as humanly close to the balance that you can find. So one of the things that jumped out to me here is I actually, totally agree. But one of the things I've done is I try and make sure they know, like, I'm trying, and this is why I'm trying, and this is where I want to go. And I actually listed some behaviors that I want them to know I'm trying to be good at these things. Have you done anything similar to that, or what are those things that and I know they're gone, but you were trying things. So how are you communicating to them what you were trying and how hard you were trying?
Yeah, well, usually I screwed up, and I would go to them and tell them I screwed up. Hey, I'm trying to be a better dad. I know I did this, that, or the other thing, or I missed this event, or so oftentimes it was me just laying it out there, and just telling them I'm trying to do the best I can. And I talked to my kids early on as we were going through this about how I was raised.
Yeah.
In that I wanted to do it different, but I only knew what I was taught.
Right.
They didn't get it at the time, right? They didn't get it at the time, but they certainly get it now.
Right.
And, I think we went through a period of time where they just couldn't believe the lifestyle that I had growing up with a single mom. We didn't have any money, and, but talking through some of the things and talking through some of the bad things that happened with my dad. My dad was a great person. Please don't take that the wrong way. But for me, it was just admitting, hey, I've screwed up. I'm trying to do better.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. And I think I still do that very often. We talked a little bit earlier about, one of those pieces of empowerment and culture in a business is trusting somebody. And I'm just a firm believer that one of the quickest ways to trust, and you do want your children to trust you, otherwise I think you're in trouble,
Yeah.
Is humility.
Yeah.
Like, I don't trust people who have never shown me they did something wrong. Because to me, if you've never done anything wrong, you're either lying or you're not trying anything worth doing.
You're just
Right?
lying.
Yeah. Well, you're probably just lying is probably
You're
the better
probably just
answer.
lying.
But if you said, no, I haven't made any mistakes, then you're probably really not trying anything very challenging or hard, right? If
Yeah.
you're going after something worthwhile, you're going to make mistakes. And I think that humility is a great way to develop trust. And I think that goes in the business world and also at home. So I'm never shy about sitting down and saying, here's what I tried to do, and here's where I really screwed it up. And that has served me really well, both professionally and at home. So I'm glad you kind of talk about that with your kids as well. Okay, so final thing here, because we're really kind of at time here. You do have a whole chapter on it's okay to make mistakes, and I think we didn't really talk necessarily about the things I highlighted there, but I think we talked about that. We got some of that out there. But I really want to touch on this one thing you talk about in your conclusion piece, and I'm going to read it right from here, and then I think we can elaborate a little bit. And I know something about you, a mantra you have that we kind of share that we didn't know until we met each other. But you say this is a journey of progress, and you want to start that journey as soon as possible. And you talked earlier about punching that time card, right? So the difference between activity and progress. So maybe share a little bit more about, maybe why your company name and how that came about, and how you see progress versus activity.
Yeah. So my company for my book is PNP Strategies, which stands for Progress, Not Perfection. And I think that motto actually comes from something I heard about being a foster parent. You don't have to be perfect to be a foster parent, but
right.
We're never going to be perfect in anything we do. We're never going to be perfect. We're never going to get it perfectly right because you don't know the other side. Right.
Yeah.
But progress to me, even today, I've made a major life change here in the last month where I get up. I used to get up, get a great big cup of coffee, get in the hot tub, sit and drink my coffee, and then shower and go to work. And I thought, I am just surviving until I die. And now I get up, have a couple of cups of coffee, and I go walk 10,000 steps.
Wow, you get your 10,000 right away, huh?
I try to. Yeah.
Right.
But that's progress. That's a little bit of progress. Yeah. And I think you put it in your book about, doing 25 push-ups every day or something like that. And my coach, Mike, Mike, he says, hey, Pat, did you do 25 push-ups today? And when I first started, I'm embarrassed to say I couldn't do 25 push-ups in a row. Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And now I do. But, life is about progress. And if you expect perfection, you're going to constantly be disappointed. You're never going to be satisfied.
Yeah.
And it's something I struggle with my daughter because she's a perfectionist and she judges herself against other people. There's always somebody who's going to be smarter than you or better looking than you, or, can drive a car faster than you, whatever it is. And I think accepting the fact that this is truly, we just got to make little bits of progressive steps. And if you don't have the time with your kids, or you don't have the time with your wife, and you can't have breakfast with them every day, that's okay. But do it once a week.
Right.
Right. My wife and I still go out on a date every single week.
Yeah.
And, we make time for that, but you have to begin carving it out, and don't try and eat the elephant, in one bite. It's one bite at a time.
Right.
Right. And make those small steps, because you get to the end of the month or the end of the week or the end of the year. Wow, look at the progress I made.
Yeah.
I am having conversations now with my kids that I never had before. Like you asking them, what do you need from me? How are you doing? What's going on in your world? That's progress.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of progress. I actually don't. I had somebody once tell me, and I'm a person who thrives on improving. So somebody told me once, like, perfection is your enemy because perfection has no scope for growth.
Well, there's no scope for growth, but you can't get there.
Yeah, it's unattainable, but also, like, what's the fun in being there? What are you going to improve? Like, if you're somebody who thrives on improvement, What are you
Yeah.
going to improve when you're perfect?
Yeah.
Nothing. So what are you
Yeah.
going to do with yourself?
Exactly.
So yeah, I get that. But yeah, we are kind of at time here. So I do want to wrap up here. First, thank you, one for the book. It's meant a lot to me.
You
I
bet.
really enjoyed it. I know I shared back to you the paragraph that like hit me right at the exact moment. My only criticism is you should have sent it to me 6 years ago. I needed it more than than I do now.
Yeah.
But it's still very helpful to me. And you kind of talk, wrapping up, building off of, first I'll ask, was there anything I missed? Was there anything that you thought, man, I really wish you would, and I did skip over some stuff just because of time, but was there something that you really hoped I would have shared today out of the book that maybe I didn't?
Just I guess reemphasizing that this book is not about how to build a business.
Yeah. Right.
This book is about how to maintain your family and maintain what's important to you and run a successful business.
Right. Yeah. There wasn't a bunch of technicals like this is how you incorporate and this is how you do your taxes. No, it was, yeah. Right. Well, good point. So if somebody's getting this expecting to have the playbook to run a business, that's not what this is supposed to be.
Not what this is about.
Yeah. Great. So progress and it's a journey, and people start today, start now. Why are you waiting? Where would you send them for resources, or where's the best place to get your book?
So my book, The Family Business Balancing Act, is on Amazon.
Okay.
That's
We'll
the best place
for that.
Yep. And then my email is pnpstrategies@outlook.com.
Yeah, I'll get that posted in the comments.
PNP is progress, not perfection.
Perfection.
Strategies. Yeah.
Yep. I think I shared the Lincoln quote with you. Don't let progress get in the way of perfection. Or don't let perfection. I said that backwards. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, important stuff. All right, Pat. Well, once again, I really, really enjoyed the book. I really enjoyed the conversation today. I hope that people, engage with the book, engage with the chat here. We'll get your email in there if they've got some other questions for you, hoping they reach out.
Great. Thanks so much, Lucas.